What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to build an awesome 1440p gaming PC build right now. A system that's going to tear through the latest AAA titles at 1440p, navigate the current complicated GPU and memory market by making some smart component choices that help cut costs in selected areas of today's build, and should hopefully be easy to put together and look amazing once assembled. As always, I'll be walking you guys through all the part choices as I put this system together, giving you guys some alternative recommendations if you want to go for an AMD GPU instead or upgrade to a slightly higher spec, and then looking at performance a little bit later. So without any further ado, let's dive into it after a quick word from today's video sponsor. GeekaPC has landed. If you're based in the UK and want to buy one of our gaming PCs as a pre-built, you can now do just that. We've got a wide range of systems available, with most of them featured right here on the channel. Great build quality, speedy delivery times, and top tier components. Learn more at the first link in the description below. As usual, I'm going to dive straight into it and start installing the components, explaining the choices as I go. I should just quickly mention that I will leave latest pricing and availability for all different regions at Amazon in the description below. And if you want to buy this system pre-built and you're based in the UK, we'll be offering it as a pre-built system on GeekaPC. It will probably cost you a little bit more money than building it yourself, but it's an option if you didn't want to go the DIY route. Thanks for all the support, by the way, on GeekaPC. It's been a crazy few months over there, and I really do appreciate it. Now, in terms of the parts, let's start with the motherboard. This is the Gigabyte Eagle B850 Wi-Fi 6E. It's one of my favourite motherboards on the market for a few key reasons. It sits on the B850 chipset, which is great. We've got widespread PCI Gen 5 support, 4 RAM DIMM slots, decent I/O connectivity, and a good bit of future-proofing. This is going to work with the latest Ryzen processors now, potentially even a whole other generation of Ryzen CPUs. And while you can install the Ryzen 5 9600X I've selected in this build, you can also pop this right up to the likes of a 9850X3D without changing any of the other parts in today's system. AMD have just got the upgradability down to a T, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. Now, talking of CPUs, this Ryzen 5 9600 is brilliant. It's got 6 cores and 12 threads, which is plenty for gaming. Clock speeds are great too, with boost clocks well in excess of 5 GHz, and it just ticks a lot of boxes. Really, if you're going to put more money into this build, I would probably leave the CPU as it is, as the GPU is always going to deliver you a bit more by way of performance gains. Now, I'm going to begin by installing not just the CPU into the motherboard, but also our RAM and our storage, which are possibly two of the more controversial parts in today's gaming PC build, especially in the current climate. Now, let's start with memory. I've got this 32GB 6000 MHz kit from Corsair. We all know the memory market is in crisis right now. You can find a full video I made talking about it in the cards now. My honest advice, if you're looking to build this for yourself, is just find the cheapest 32GB DDR5 kit you can. You may also want to consider 16GB as a temporary option just to get it built and save some money, and add in the other 16GB when prices inevitably fall. Different regions are affected worse than others. Here in the UK, you can commonly find DDR5 32GB kits for about £325. In the US, I've accounted for about $400 for this build to get the memory moving. Storage, I've gone for this Biwin drive. Now, Biwin you might not have heard of, is not sponsored. Pick this up from Amazon because they're one of the biggest SSD makers on Amazon. And unlike other SSD brands, for example, Corsair, Biwin are an OEM. And what that means is they make their own flash chips. So they're not buying these and rebranding them or buying the chips and putting them on a PCB. They're making everything from start to finish. Currently in the UK, they're one of the most competitive brands out there. We've used them in probably about 200 GeekaPC systems and not had one problem, which is pretty impressive. This is Gen 4, it's their NV7400 model, and it gives you read and write speeds pretty close to that 7-8 GB a second mark, which is really impressive. As mentioned before, I'm going to install all of this into the motherboard, which is nice and easy to do, and I'm going to guide you through that now. The first component of those is the processor. Now, installing this is pretty easy. I'm going to begin by pushing down the arm on the CPU socket outwards and then lifting up the socket cover. You then want to drop the processor into place, and if you're wondering about orientation, there's a little golden triangle on the CPU, and that matches up with a triangle on the CPU socket. The same triangle is also visible on the socket cover. Push the arm back down under the actual latch, and the black plastic will pop off. For the memory, I'm then going to pull back the clips on the 2nd and 4th DIMM slots. There's no clips down the bottom, and then slide the RAM in. You'll notice the notch lines up between the actual DIMM itself and the slot on the motherboard. Bit of pressure with a thumb on each side, and the RAM will click into place. Repeat this for as many DIMMs as you've got, and of course, don't forget the peel. Then for the SSD, it's a simple case of pulling back the little clip on the M.2 heatsink, dropping the drive in, that slides into this very top slot just here, and then secures into place with this little black plastic clip. Pull off the cover for the thermal pad, and then secure the drive into place. Easy. So that's the motherboard assembly nearly complete. The final thing I'm going to install is the cooler. And this is an interesting CPU cooler from a brand called Up Here. Now, Up Here is just basically one of these Amazon brands, right? I guess they're a little bit like a Thermalright in the sense that they just make stuff that's very affordable, don't really spend very much money on marketing or doing really any kind of promotion, but make products that are actually good quality. And then people like me try them, buy them, and then end up quite liking them. Now, this is I think it's called the KC1 or the Up One Here. He's had a few model variations over the time I've been using them. It's basically just a standard CPU air cooler. And the reason I like it is because I think it looks quite suave. It's got this nice integrated glossy black fan. The actual heatsink itself is black. It's got 4 copper heat pipes that run obviously all the way through there, all powder coated in black as well. And on the top here, we've got a bit of RGB for good measure. Installation is pretty simple, but for that, you're going to need to dig into the included accessories bag and then locate this bag here of AMD brackets. There's some stoppers, some screws, and these metal brackets here. Now, the very first step before we even touch these is to remove the stock black plastic brackets that come pre-installed. Take those out now. Then add the included grey stoppers over the thread holes that have now been revealed from taking off those black plastic brackets. And then take the included metal silver brackets and add these on either side. Of course, screw them in so they're nice and secure, and that will provide the basis to mount the cooler itself. I'm then going to add a little dab of thermal paste around the size of a large grain of rice. That's going to be perfect before securing the cooler onto those 2 posts that have now become available on our silver brackets. You can start these by hand and then finish them off with a screwdriver to make sure they're nice and tight. Fantastic. So that is the CPU cooler installed, and the next step is going ahead and moving this into the case. So in order to do that, I need to take the power supply and the GPU out of the way to talk about this, the Corsair 3500X. Now, I did take a look at this case when it first landed, probably about a year ago, and I quite liked it. It's not the most spectacular thing in the world, but it looks nice. Currently, the price is very good, which is one of the main motivating factors. And actually, it's built very well. The build quality on this case, in my opinion, is really rather good. So give me a few moments to get out of the box and I'll be back. So here we are. And actually, you know what? When I look at this, I actually kind of forget how good this is for the money. Let me explain. So the tempered glass side panels on these nice little pop joints, so that's fully toolless and we can take that out. The tint on it isn't too strong, which is great for the RGB lighting and seeing your components. You can put intake fans on the power supply shield if you like. There is room for a 360mm radiator very comfortably at the top, and this top panel's got Corsair's kind of new signature sort of like Y design, which is really rather nice. Panel thickness feels pretty good considering the cost of the case. Corsair have recently added a vertical GPU support bracket as an additional later upgrade. So this comes as standard with, if you buy this now, the likelihood is it's going to be in there depending on, I guess, how old the stock you buy is. The fans included are RSR, so they're reverse blade fans, which look really great. You know what? I actually feel like this case is perhaps better than some of us gave credit for when it first came out. The only thing I just really hate, and I hate it in the Frame 4000 and maybe even the Frame 5000, if you're gonna buy the RGB one, you need to get an extra fan for the back. It really winds me up. Corsair, just please put one in. Even if it's non-RGB, it costs literally nothing and would make so much difference. Just gives you some active exhaust. It looks a lot better. It mainly just looks a lot better. And to me, that's something that I'm gonna fix later. And if you buy this from GeekaPC, we're gonna fix it too, because it really should be in there as standard. In terms of installing the motherboard, that's the next stage, and that's pretty easy. Before actually getting the motherboard in, you just need to locate the little accessories box that comes included. This here should have all of the screws and stuff that are needed to get the board into the case. Yes, it does. It's also got some cable ties as well and a few other accessories. Now, what you'll see is a few different screws included. At the very top here, we've got the fan screws, then we've got our motherboard and power supply screws, then some drive screws, and then some extra standoffs as well. You might be wondering, James, are all the standoffs in the right place? Yes, for an ATX board, this is perfect. So we haven't got to check, which makes life easy. If you do want to check, there's 3 on the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom of the motherboard, and you want the corresponding locations in the case as well. They're all there. Then slide the board into place, the I/O poking out the back, get it lined up over all the different standoffs. Beautiful. Yeah, look at that. It will hold itself into place for now, but there's no excuse to not screw it down. So please do screw it down. 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 along the bottom to get it nice and secure. Now, for the next component in the build, you can either do the GPU or the power supply. I'm going to save the graphics card till last because I actually think it's just a better component to put in at the end and do the power supply as well as all the cabling and wiring now, while all the components are actually easy to access. As I said before, this is called Corsair's RM750e. It's a 750 watt ATX 3.1 power supply. It's got that PCI Gen 5 power cable and is Cybernetics Platinum for efficiency, which is great. If you also take a look at the PSU tier list, which is basically the universal source of whether or not a power supply is any good, it ranks pretty well. It's not the very, very best, but for the money, it's a solid shout. As I say, I'll leave this link down below for latest pricing and availability at Amazon, which you may want to look at for the PSU, maybe not look at for memory. One of the good things about this power supply is that it's fully modular, and that means you only plug in the cables that you actually need. And I'm going to talk you through what those cables are. Now, the first cable is the largest cable of all, our 20 plus 4-pin motherboard power cable. I'm also going to pop in this, our PCI Gen 5 power cable. This is for our graphics card. I'm going to look for a CPU power cable. This one is handily marked with CPU on the side. Can we see that? Yeah, we can see that. There should be a second one of those as well, which we do need for our motherboard. We need one 4 plus 4 pin and then another 4 pins, which is here. Aha, here we go. So that's our second CPU power cable. I always tend to pop in a SATA power cable as well. I don't believe I'll need one for this build, but it can be useful for things like fan and RGB hubs and all that kind of stuff. In terms of the power supply itself, it's a pretty compact unit, as you'll be able to see, with all of our modular cable interfaces that are nicely labelled. To simply plug in all the cables we just talked about into their respective modular locations, and then slide the whole power supply unit into the rear of the case. This case supports fan up or fan down. I'm going to go fan down to pull in air from under the chassis. From here, I'm then going to go ahead and plug in the motherboard power connector. So this goes up to the side of the motherboard just here, and the key is making sure you get it through the grommet in the right orientation. That means that when you pop the actual cable in, like so, it looks really nice. And the integrated cable combs on this power supply are just a favorite of mine. I think they're fantastic. I'm going to follow that up with a CPU power cable up to the top left, and then all the front panel cables, everything from the JFP1 front panel pins to the bottom right, the HD audio connector to the bottom left. It is notched or keyed, so only goes in one way, and then the USB 3 Type A and USB 3 Type C. I think unfortunately the Type A connector is going to be blocked by the GPU support bracket, so that might have to go in order to get the connection in. And then once that is all done, it's nearly time for the GPU. First, I'm going to replace the fan. As you can see, I've opted for an actual Corsair fan that matches the rest of the build. If I can find some scissors to actually open the fan with. This is the RSR 120, but it's the normal, sorry, the RS 120. The RSR is the reverse blade fan. And as you can see, yeah, that looks rather nice and is going to fit perfectly into the back. The only thing I don't love is the cables are quite short. Now, I'm going to make that work in this build, but it's just something to be aware of. I'm also going to cut the little label off. You haven't got to worry about that. Grab the cables, try and sort of thread the cables through before you install the fan. Again, difficult because they're very, very short on this model. And as you can see, that's going to sit in there and look really rather nice. The screws you need for this are the fan screws that come included inside of the bag. You see now when I let go of the fan, the cable falls out. So if the cable was longer, that wouldn't happen. It's like a radiator fan. That's the problem. It's a very weird design. I guess to be fair, actually, to Corsair's credit, there are some extension cables in here, which I didn't see. So maybe I'd take it back. And then we can finally move on to the GPU. I thought this build's been actually very easy to put together. If you're looking for like a first-time gaming PC build, this is a great one. Now, for the RTX 5070, I've gone for this, which is a Gigabyte model. Now, when it comes to the GPU choice for this build, you've basically got two options, the 5070 or the 9070. Now, in theory, you could upgrade to a 5070 Ti or 9070 XT. You might get a bit of CPU bottlenecking, but not too much. But for me, this is more 5070 territory. As to whether you should go AMD or Nvidia, I prefer the 5070 in the current market, but it depends what's cheaper. They're basically the same in terms of performance. The 9070 tends to be a little bit quicker in rasterization after recent driver improvements, but doesn't have quite as good DLSS, FSR technology equivalents. So the DLSS on here will be better than what you'll get from AMD on their suite. Ultimately though, both cards are going to be great. I'll put some benchmarks in the build write-ups if you actually want to read a bit more about this build and check latest live pricing. That's all on our website. We actually have links with like Amazon and Newegg to pull real-time pricing data, so you might want to check that out. And as I say, I'll put comparative benchmarks on there so you can compare them. Next up, I'm going to install the GPU, and for that I need to remove the first and the second PCI slot covers from the rear of the case. So as you can see, that's pretty easy. The screws that we take out are the same screws that we're actually going to use to secure the GPU in, so keep these safe. If you do lose them, they're also the same screws that this case uses to install the motherboard, so that makes life a little bit easier. I'm then going to push back the little release clip on the motherboard for the graphics card slot. Looks like it's already been done on this particular board from the factory. And then push the graphics card into place. You can give it a bit of a tug on the end, and if it comes out, it's not in properly, if you get what I'm saying.
That's what she said.
But obviously, this build, it is in fine, and we're all good. I'm going to tighten the GPU up. It would actually be a good graphics card for the support bracket. It's long enough that it would be useful. Unfortunately, I had to take it out to get the USB 3.0 header in, which I would argue is probably slightly more important. Then I'm going to put the GPU power cable through. Do we have a cutout? We kind of do. We've got a cutout down the bottom here for this, which is actually perfectly aligned. So great job, Corsair. It's almost like you planned it. Push that in, get it clicked in nice and secure. Again, nothing wrong with giving this a bit of a tug. Not too hard, you don't want to break it, but it should be in firmly. And if you pull it and it comes out, it's actually not in quite right anyway. And now there's a bit of cable management to do to actually tidy up some of the cables and wiring in this build, but otherwise it looks pretty good. So maybe let's boot it up and get the RGB configured and see how it stands up. What a great looking gaming PC, but what about performance? That's always the big question you should ask when looking at the parts for any system. And I'm glad to report that at 1440p high settings, which is what this system was tested at across the board, we got some great results. Let's start off, shall we, with our best frame rate of all in Arc Raiders. 1440p high settings from the 5070 in this system delivered an average frame rate of 126.9 frames per second, basically 127 FPS. The game looked fantastic at 1440p, gave you this arguably quite competitive frame rate, and of course at 1080p will get you even closer to that 200 mark if you wanted it. Moving through to Battlefield 6, once again at 1440p high settings, and here we see an average of 124 frames per second. Frame rates are actually slightly more consistent than in Arc Raiders, with 1 and 0.1% lows of 95 and 76 respectively, and great visuals throughout. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that we keep testing more because it's easy to compare as it's been used for such a long time, and here in the inbuilt benchmarking mode at 1440p high, we saw an average of 122 frames a second. Marvel's Rivals at 1440p high settings again, I think you can guess what settings we use for the rest of the games today, perform well too, more than 110 FPS on average. In Pragmata, one of the newest titles on the list at 1440p high, average frame rate stood at over 115 FPS, while finally in Resident Evil Requiem, a brand new AAA title, and a game that can be more preferential towards Nvidia GPUs than AMD, and performance here was strong too, 93.9 FPS at that 1440p high preset, more than enough for a single player title like this one. What do you guys think of this build? Let me know in the comments below. Check out latest part pricing for Amazon and other retailers across a range of regions, or even check it out over on GeekaPC alongside our wide range of high quality pre-built gaming PCs. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.